would you do if you could hear the opposite sex's thoughts? I mean, what would I do? Yeah, I'd probably wield it for my own power and my I'd wield it to get ahead, I'm not gonna lie. That's probably why I'm not given that gift. That's a side note, but yeah. My name is Sophie Hannah and this is the Cine Chic vlog, which is a vlog all about film review and just everything to do with film. The latest review I've done is for the film What Men Want with Taraji P Henson, and it came out on Friday, so it's still very much in cinemas for you to go out and watch. Before I start talking about it, don't forget to subscribe to my channel down here and put on the notifications so you can see all of my latest film reviews as I continue on my journey to watch 100 films in 2019. Now let's talk about the plot. So the film, I think you pretty much get the gist of it if you've seen the trailer. It's about a woman who is kind of bossy, kind of mean. She's very focused on her career and getting ahead and winning at any cost. And one day when she goes into work thinking that she's going to get a promotion, she actually gets passed over for a man. She works as a sports agent in a very male-dominated office or career, and she feels like she's not becoming a partner because the men don't really want her to. Later on that day, she's out with some friends, they see a psychic, and they go out partying, and she wakes up in the morning and she can hear men's thoughts. Now, she really thinks that this is a curse, but she begins to think, if I work in a male-dominated office and I can hear men's thoughts, how am I not going to be getting ahead? There's also a bit of a love interest story thrown in, but that's just the basic premise of the film. My initial thoughts? I don't think it was a very good film. I feel like comedy is a really tricky genre to get. To make somebody laugh, to naturally laugh, to not be able to see the jokes come in, to feel like it has that je ne sais quoi, that just natural inherent funniness. I don't even know if that's a word, but you know what I mean. Now, another first thought about this film is that it's a remake, if you didn't know already. There was a film released in 2000 called What Women Want, which had Mel Gibson in it, Helen Hunt, and it was pretty much the same film but the other way around. So it's a guy who worked at a marketing agency this time, and he was much more of a sexist and misogynist. He thought women were just there for his sexual gratification, and he had to realize that women were more than that, and women could help him to get the best out of himself and vice versa. Now this film is kind of similar, but it's not as good as a film in terms of the remake. You know when you see something online and you think, I don't know if that's really gonna work for me, but let me order it and, you know, maybe it will turn out better than I think. And then you get it, you're like, no, it's exactly what I thought it would be. It's not very good. That's what I really thought of this film, and I'm sad to say that, especially because it's a remake, I wanted it to be better, but it just wasn't. With remakes, you have to make the film better, but it's so difficult. I can think of very few films that were remade and were actually better than the original. They might have been like on par, they might have been like just as good, because Star is Born is a remake that was made that has gotten so many awards and has been really talked about because it was just as good as one of the original versions. But in general, it's very difficult, and most film lovers will tell you, don't remake it, just leave it, it stands alone, it can work by itself. And I felt that with this film. I think it's a very interesting concept. What would you do if you could hear the opposite sex's thoughts? I mean, what would I do? Yeah, I'd probably wield it for my own power and my I'd wield it to get ahead, I'm not gonna lie. That's probably why I'm not given that gift. That's a side note, but yeah, who knows what you would do. But let's just get on to the pros and the cons, and then you can tell me what you think about this film. So in terms of the pros, for me it was actually a lot of the supporting cast. They were really strong, and I think they really helped to try and make this a better film. Even though it fell flat, I think that there was some good supporting cast. Tracy Morgan, he's a comedian, and I think he's really funny in this, especially towards the beginning of the film. I'm sure he improvised some of his lines, but he has that thing. Like, as a comedian, you have to stand up on stage, you have to talk to a different audience every night, so you need to be funny, you need to know what works, and he definitely does, and he brings it to this film. Also, the love interest Will and his scenes with Ali, who is the main character played by Taraji, their chemistry really works well together. In the scenes that they're in, I think they bring the best out of each other, and those are some of the best scenes in the film, to be honest. You can just see that they're connected, you see that they have a good working relationship in terms of actors, and it really transcends the screen, so it's believable. Plus he's super sexy. It's Aldous Hodge, if you want to know, ladies, go and look him up, but he looks very nice in this film. A bit of eye candy never hurt anybody. He was definitely eye candy. I went to see this with my husband, so maybe I had to kind of like hold it down. But No, he's a very attractive man, so it's a nice thing to kind of put a good looking man in the film. It never hurts anybody, as well as having a good looking woman, so I'm looking out for the men and the women. Don't you forget that. Also, the assistant to Ali in the film, who's played by Josh Brenner, he's someone who I thought was realistic in the film. So he's someone who you could definitely meet in your office workplace. He was just very believable and he made the most of his scenes. So another pro. Also, an idea that the film touched on I thought was a pro. I think it was a pro, but it couldn't 100% be a pro just because they never developed the idea. And I feel like they were really missing a trick to do that. I felt like if they'd have done that, it would have really elevated the film a bit more. When I say they touched on this idea of women empowerment and self-worth, the problem I had is that they touched on it way too late in the film. So like Ali, she says this line towards the end about, you know, I no longer want to please men in order to get ahead. And when I saw that, I was like, is that what you're trying to do? Is that what you're trying to do in the film? Like, I did not get it at all. When she said it, I was just like, oh, that was supposed to be something you were talking about. I don't think it fully went there to make it a strong theme. And the idea of women empowerment, feminism, self-worth, self-love, like accepting your own characteristics and not feeling like you need to be like anybody else or not use your own unique attributes to get ahead. I think that's a massive idea right now. And I felt like if they'd have tapped into that, it would have been really good for the film. So it's kind of like a semi-pro because it never fully went there. Moving on to the cons. There were a lot. Number one would have to be the script and the plot. The script just felt really messy. Things just didn't really tie together very well at all. I think in a comedy, it has to be great characters in funny situations. So in this film, I felt it was much more comedic situations that were supposed to fit around the characters, and the characters were okay, but the situations just seemed so fake and so false that it just didn't work. It just did not come across very well. Number one who I would say in that is Taraji P Henson. Now I think she's a good actress. See her in Hidden Figures, that was a great film that got nominated for like best film at the Oscars a few years ago. She was also in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, if you remember. She played Brad Pitt's dad and she got nominated for an Oscar for best supporting actress. So she's a good solid actress, but in this I think she was just so over the top that it just did not work. You could see that she was trying to do like a character arc. So she starts off as really domineering, really selfish, and on this journey she has to really discover that she needs to be nicer to get ahead, like she has to be a team player. But I think she went so big in the beginning to show the contrast between her at the beginning and the end that it just kind of fell off because you're like, this isn't realistic. The comedy from her character just seemed really silly and slapstick. It just doesn't really work for me. Another character who I thought was a con was Erykah Badu's character, and she played the psychic. Erykah Badu is a fantastic singer. I've actually seen her live. And she was just as weird and wonderful as you would want her to be. She's not an actress, in my opinion. I just felt like her beginning scenes when she was playing the psychic, it was just like, huh? Like, it was like someone had given her a one-on-one manual of what an actor should look like, rather than someone who was believable. That's what I'm trying to say. She looked like she was acting and it looked like it wasn't very good. Towards the end, like after the credits, there's a few outtake scenes where a few of the characters are talking to the psychic, and she got better, but never to the point that I think that she should have been in this film. I think it's really great that she's in it because she's a big name and you're bringing in the world of music. So you're kind of combining audiences, but you can only do that if they're a good actress and that they're going to bring more to the film. If they're not bringing more, then they're not helping and they're kind of bringing it down. But that's all I'm going to say about that, because she's a good singer, so yeah. Another point for me would be the construction of the character Ali. I think that this film would have worked better if there was a contrast between Ali and the men in her office. Okay, let me explain that. So the men in her office are shown to us as typically male characters. So what I mean by that is what society would think a man would look like. They're brash. They make coarse jokes. They have secret poker nights that they don't want to invite the women to. They're all about business and their career and ambition. Okay, that's fine. Now for me, Ali being able to hear men's thoughts so she could get ahead because she doesn't really understand men would have worked if she was different from the guys. But in the film, she's just very much like them. Just as ambitious, just as career driven. And if she's like that, that's fine. But why does she need to hear men's thoughts? What is she supposed to learn from men if they're making her character typically male, because I'm not talking about subscribing to gender roles and that a man has to be strong and a woman has to be soft. I'm not saying that, but in the film, she wasn't that different from them, so I'm like, why does she need to hear her thoughts? Maybe she thinks the same ones. I think the point that they were trying to get to, if I think really deeply about this, because I think this is a very surface level film, but if I think deeply about it, they were trying to say that men are more than society gives them credit for. We might want men to be strong and brave and fearless and not to worry, but actually they have hearts. And a lot of times their heart is actually driving their actions, and if you tap into that, then you'll be able to understand them more. Chances are if you see this film, you're probably thinking that I'm going a lot deeper than the film was, because they briefly touched on that, but I felt like they really missed an opportunity. Like, really missed an opportunity, because I felt like that could have made the film have so much more depth. Men have worries and insecurities because that's part of being human. Like, that's part of the human experience, and it didn't really talk about that. It kind of brushed it in that one point, and then it just moved on to something else, and I'm like, oh, you really could have done more with this. That was another thing that I just didn't think worked well, that I really felt that they could have improved on. Also, in places I felt like the film was sending really mixed messages. So it was trying to say on one hand that women should be themselves and bring their own unique characteristics to the table, but then I also felt like it was sexist in parts. So there's this line that Tracy Morgan actually says to the character Ali, which is, I don't trust a woman who doesn't have a family the same way I don't trust a man who doesn't have eyebrows. I think that was the line. So for me, I was just like, what? Are we really going to push the idea that a woman needs to have a family to be trusted in the working world? Come on, let's get out of the 1950s or the 60s or the 70s or whatever decade that idea came from. Why are we not putting the same ideal on the man? Why can't a man be trusted because he has a family? It's because we assume that women should be more nurturing. That's what we say. Women should be more nurturing. They should be more concerned with having a husband and having children. So therefore we trust women more if they do what we think women should stereotypically be doing. But for a man, if he doesn't want to have a family, then that's fine. He just needs to have eyebrows. I wasn't really sure where it was going with that, but for me, I was kind of offended, because I'm like, do you know what? Why can't a woman feel like I don't need to have a family? I actually want to focus on my career. That's also a very legitimate path for a woman to go down, and I wish that they would have empowered women to have made that choice. Maybe I'm overthinking that. Watch the film and tell me your thoughts. So moving on to what do I take away from this film? I don't think that there's very much to take away from this film. If I'm really thinking about it, I would say one, what I've talked about already, self-empowerment and women having self-worth and not feeling like they have to put on stereotypical masculine tendencies to get ahead in the working world. And they can learn from men and men can learn from them in order to really be successful. And number two, the idea that they played with but didn't really develop in regards to men being more than we can give them credit for. If the film had really worked on those ideas, I thought that those would have been really strong takeaway points, but yeah, that's me really looking for them. In terms of who this film is for, I think it's a nice enjoyable film if you want something light to go out and watch. Something that's not going to be very heavy, you'll laugh about it. Like if you saw this on TV on like a Sunday afternoon, it'd be entertaining, the family would enjoy it, but you know, you might not record it on your Skybox, you wouldn't buy it on a DVD. That's what I would think. But it's a nice enjoyable film if you want to see a light comedy that doesn't really have that much depth. So in terms of ratings, I rate my films according to burgers because I'm obsessed by them. So I would give this, out of a maximum of 5 burgers, 2. The reason why I'd give this 2 burgers is because I feel like it's a road trip burger. You might stop off and get that burger. It hits the spot, but it was nothing special. It just kind of keeps you going. It's just convenience. You don't really expect that much from it. And those would be my thoughts on What Men Want. So my next review is going to be coming out this Thursday at 7 PM on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. And it's going to be for the film Fighting With My Family. So that has The Rock, Dwayne Johnson in it. And it's about a girl who's from a family of wrestlers and she wants to become a professional wrestler. Now, I remember wrestling from growing up. I'm not the biggest wrestling fan, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what this film has to offer. So tune in on Thursday so you can find out my thoughts on that. Please don't forget to like this video, to share, and also to subscribe, and also follow my journey on social media as I try to watch 100 films in 2019. Now I think What Men Want was film number 11, so I'm really powering through much and I've got a lot more to watch, but I really want you to come along with me so I can tell you what's good, what's bad, and what you should definitely be going out there to watch. Now the question that I'm going to leave you with today is, what is a really great comedy that you've seen? What is a film that anytime you're feeling down, you're like, do you know, if I put that on, it's going to make me feel better? Or it just makes you belly laugh? Like, what is that film? Please let me know your answers down in the comments, and I'll see you soon.